Across 2024 to 2025, youth-led protests have surged across continents. In many of the countries we will examine, roughly 1 in 3 people is under 25, a latent political force. In recent months, that force has been visible in streets, squares, and campuses. Lima, Peru. Antananarivo, Madagascar. Young people in unprecedented numbers are filling public squares and demanding fundamental changes to how their countries are run. They are numerous. They are vocal. Their collective frustration is reshaping political landscapes in real time. Our methodology, official statistics from the UN, ILO, the World Bank, and national bureaus, and human rights reporting from OHCHR, HRW, Amnesty, and verified NGOs. Counts are often contested. Where precise numbers vary, we report vetted ranges and note limitations. Since early 2024 and accelerating into late 2025, youth-led demonstrations have surged. Madagascar, Nepal, Peru, Indonesia, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Kenya, Morocco. Catalysts differ, but the currents are similar. Jobs and wages, prices and services, corruption and rights. This is a story about a generation connected by technology, but disconnected from the opportunities they were promised. A generation that has decided waiting is no longer an option. Like and subscribe to Smartobrains. Do you support the protests? Madagascar, late 2024 into 2025. Youth-led protests surge from Antananarivo's streets into a nationwide movement. Triggers: rising prices, scarce jobs, and anger at corruption. Students and young workers at the front, marches growing by the day. Context: over 2/3 of Malagasys live in poverty, an enduring strain that shapes politics. A very young country, a majority under 25, mobilization potential is high. Youth unemployment and NEET rates outpace adults. Many graduates face informality or no work at all. Prices, especially food and transport, have surged, squeezing young households hardest. Digital natives organized rapidly. Campus groups, worker collectives, and neighborhood networks converged. Reports documented mass arrests and injuries. Casualties were reported during clashes. Figures vary by source. Rights groups also noted social media restrictions and temporary internet disruptions during peak unrest. As marches grew, security forces secured key sites. Their stance became a pivotal variable. Presidential authority waned. Leaders departed the capital. A transitional authority pledged elections within 2 years. The movement stayed decentralized, broad, youth-led, and agile. Posts became crowds within hours. Encrypted chats, short video clips, and microblogs bypassed traditional gatekeepers. Symbols, songs, and live streams knit solidarity from Antananarivo to provincial towns. Courage traveled fast. Madagascar's arc shows the pattern: youth bulge, economic strain, digital coordination, and a decisive security response shaping the outcome. In Nepal, a youth-driven uprising took shape, sparked by moves to restrict social media, then widened into demands over free expression, the economy, and governance. The spark was digital, platform bans and blocks, plus multiple nationwide internet shutdowns during key protest days, documented by Access Now and the UN Human Rights Office. A large youth cohort underpins mobilization. Over 2 in 5 Nepalis are under 25, according to UN population data. Yet opportunity lags. ILO reports low formal youth unemployment, but high underemployment and NEET rates in the mid-teens to low 20s, a mismatch felt by graduates. Growth softened while prices stayed high. World Bank and national statistics note elevated inflation, especially for food and transport. Many young people oscillate between informal gigs or no paid work at all, a daily precarity that fuels anger. Then the cost of living squeeze, food prices up, housing burdens, and transport costs, all rising faster than entry-level wages. Students and young workers, often with the thinnest financial margins, feel this first and most acutely. Policy moves seen as opaque or unfair, new restrictions, fees, and bans acted as accelerants, rapidly turning online frustration into street marches. Once crowds swelled into the tens of thousands, the political center of Kathmandu struggled to function. Beyond household hardship, protesters decried weak services, healthcare, and education, arguing that futures were narrowing, not expanding. Many saw meritocracy slipping, life chances fixed more by birthplace and connections than by effort and skill. The human cost mounted. Independent monitors reported dozens killed, many more injured, and large numbers arrested during clashes and crackdowns. OHCHR, HRW, and Amnesty. Internet disruptions recurred at critical moments, cutting live streams and coordination. Access Now and OHCHR noted repeated shutdown events. Politically, the pressure proved decisive. Amid escalating unrest and condemnation of abuses, the Prime Minister resigned, reported widely by domestic media and international outlets. Peru, 2024-25. Measuring fast, leader light marches is hard. Counts vary by day, district, and source. Still, the scale is undeniable. Defensoría del Pueblo 2025, OHCHR 2025. Official figures and organizer claims frequently diverge. Observer networks bridge the gap with triangulated counts. Defensoría del Pueblo 2025. Consistent reporting from journalists, rights groups, and local ombud offices shows massive youth-led mobilizations, Lima's center and regional hubs from Cusco to Puno to Arequipa. OHCHR 2025, HRW 2025. Turnout surged from thousands in district marches to tens of thousands in the capital at peaks, with nationwide actions spanning multiple regions simultaneously. Press reports 2024-225. In Lima, major marches repeatedly brought downtown commerce and government to a standstill. Days of closures and reroutes. Defensoría del Pueblo 2025. Large crowds forced political attention, disrupted transport, and amplified bargaining power at the street level. 2 in 5 Peruvians are under 25, an immense mobilization pool linking urban students and rural youth. UN 2024. Youth unemployment is roughly double adult rates, locking graduates out of formal jobs. ILO 2025, INEI 2025. Inequality and poverty remain high, nearly 1 in 3 Peruvians in poverty, with youth most exposed to price shocks. World Bank 2025, INEI 2025. Inflation eased from earlier spikes, but food and transport costs stayed elevated, fueling anger over living costs. INEI 2025. Clashes and heavy policing left deaths and hundreds injured. Investigations and accountability processes continue. OHCHR 2025, Amnesty 2025, HRW 2025. Political response, cabinet reshuffles, emergency measures, and dialogue tables, yet trust gaps persist among youth. Press 2025. Street numbers signal potential power. Converting it into reforms depends on cohesion, clear demands, and institutional levers. OHCHR 2025. Data-driven conclusions rely on triangulation, ombud counts, rights monitors, and press, while precise tallies remain contested. Defensoría del Pueblo 2025, OHCHR 2025. Indonesia 2024 into 2025. Youth-led mobilizations surge across Jakarta and university campuses, turning frustration into organized street power. Core themes: opposition to controversial labor reforms, tightening online controls, and censorship that chills speech. A large youth cohort underpins the movement. UN data shows roughly 1 in 6 Indonesians is aged 15 to 24. Many face tough entry to work, youth unemployment in the low to mid-teens, and NEET near 1/5 in recent years. Wage growth lagged inflation through 2022-2023 before easing, a squeeze felt first by the young. Online, a defiant pop culture rebel motif, a pirate-style flag, spreads as shorthand for resistance. Campuses and city squares become organizing hubs. Short video and encrypted chats accelerate turnout. Marches, sit-ins, and night rallies ripple outward, from central Jakarta to provincial capitals within days. Authorities respond with dispersals and arrests. Restrictions on assembly and speech draw rights group warnings. Escalation and negotiation cycle. Some dialogues open. Curfews and protest permit limits also appear. Activists cite prosecutions for online speech under electronic information laws as a chilling effect. Outcomes hinge on security posture. Restraint lowers tensions. Hard tactics can expand the crowds. In several episodes, officials offered limited concessions or reviews, while rights groups recorded mass detentions. Youth demands jobs and fair wages, accountable governance, and digital rights protections. The spark is economic. Youth unemployment and NEET pressures, plus prices outpacing pay, then amplified by networked organizing. Rights costs are real. Reports of excessive force, arbitrary arrests, and constraints on assembly and expression. Net results so far, a mix of concessions and crackdowns. A contested arena where a connected generation demands voice and livelihood. In Bangladesh, youth-led protests surged as everyday life grew harder and trust in institutions thinned. Prices rising, jobs scarce, governance controversies, and new digital restrictions, these were the spark and the fuel. A young nation. UN estimates indicate nearly half the population is under 25. Mobilization potential at scale. ILO and BBS report youth unemployment in the high single to low double digits, with widespread underemployment for graduates and first-time job seekers. Inflation hovered near double digits, with food inflation higher, squeezing urban and rural households alike. Access Now and OHCHR documented multiple internet restrictions, mobile data slowdowns, platform throttling, and targeted shutdowns during tense periods. Rights groups reported mass detentions and clashes, injuries in the dozens to hundreds, and fatalities reported in several incidents. Authorities alternated between bans, arrests, and curbs, while announcing subsidies, reviews, and dialogues to diffuse pressure. The movement's backbone: mixed students, garment workers, transport labor, and online creators, bridging campuses, factory zones, and neighborhoods. Outcomes varied: some policy tweaks, inquiries, and releases, also intensified policing and periodic shutdowns. The streets ebbed and returned. As elsewhere, three factors tipped the balance: security force stance, protester cohesion, and clear, realistic demands. To understand why now in the Philippines, look to the youth bulge, a generation crowding Manila's university belts and civic plazas, newly assertive and deeply connected. UN data show a large youth share, a distinctly young age structure, while poverty fell pre-pandemic, then rebounded and only gradually eased afterward. UN PSAWB. Among young Filipinos, unemployment and especially underemployment sit well above adult levels, reflecting skills mismatches and scarce quality jobs. ILO, PSA. Inflation spiked in 2022, 2023, and eased in 2024, but food and transport costs remain a flashpoint, fueling protests over wages, tuition, and fares. PSA. Gen Z's digital fluency is a force multiplier. They coordinate labor actions, tuition campaigns, and governance or digital rights pushes. Fast. Flash mobs, live streams of police actions, and viral satire shift narratives at unprecedented speed across campuses and city centers. Rights monitors note both peaceful assembly and instances of forceful dispersals, arrests, and online surveillance concerns. Findings tracked by CHR, HRW, and Amnesty. CHR, HRW, Amnesty. Even if broadcasters toe the official line, the feed is shaped by students and workers posting in real time, clips that set the public mood. Many coalitions are decentralized and horizontal, campus groups with labor, transport, and rights advocates, resilient to decapitation. This fosters collective ownership and democratic participation, teach-ins, student councils, union caucuses, that keep momentum broad. But leaderlessness can hinder negotiation, long-term strategy, and tactical discipline, risking drift without agreed platforms. Outcomes so far are mixed and limited. Some fair or tuition relief, targeted subsidies, labor inspections, and bills on digital rights moving to committee. Incremental, but notable. Official notices, committee records. In Kenya, pop culture, slogans, and street art become organizing tools. Gen Z turning vibe into velocity. Fuel subsidy shifts and new tax proposals, amid a sharp cost of living squeeze, lit the fuse. Youth-led networks mobilized overnight. KNBS WB, a youthful population and high youth unemployment and NEET rates relative to adults, set the stage for mass action. UN, ILO, KNBS, TikTok, WhatsApp, and X coordinated meetups, hashtags to headcounts, across estates and campuses. Estimates vary, but crowds swelled from thousands to tens of thousands in Nairobi and beyond, per press and observer reports. Press, NGO rights groups document widespread arrests, injuries, and deaths. Figures differ by source and period. KNCHR, OHCHR, Amnesty, HRW. The stance of security forces, restraint or force, can redirect events in a single night. Outcomes have spanned concessions, intensified crackdowns, and legislative revisions, often in rapid sequence. Gov statements, court filings. Durable change needs strategy, coalitions, legal aid, negotiation teams, and clear policy asks, jobs, tax fairness, transparency. The task is to keep grassroots energy democratic while building vehicles that can win and govern. Regional and international actors, from the AU to UN rights offices, can condemn abuses or mediate transitions, nudging outcomes at the margins. AU, OHCHR. Looking ahead in Morocco, the fault lines are clear: jobs, prices, and trust in how the country is governed. Youth make up a large share of the population, and youth unemployment remains high, especially in cities like Casablanca and Rabat. Prices surged in recent years. Subsidies and inspections can ease pain, but structural reforms, skills, investment, and regional opportunity are harder. Grievances reflect regional disparities, coastal hubs versus interior and northern communities. If youth organize around jobs, fair governance, and digital rights, they can influence platforms, unions, and municipal councils. If movements remain fragmented, momentum fades and everyday pressures return. Rights groups have reported arrests and restrictions on assembly during some protests. Authorities cite public order and enforcement of the law. Today's protesters are tomorrow's voters and entrepreneurs, shaping councils, parliaments, and local economies. The agenda ahead: work creation, regional equity, education and skills, inflation control, digital freedoms, and anti-corruption. In Morocco, a generation is asserting its future, methodically, publicly, and online. The region is watching. Across 8 countries, the economics behind youth anger rhyme. Large youth cohorts, joblessness and NEET well above adult rates, prices outrunning pay at critical moments, uneven opportunity, comparative dashboard, youth shares sit above the global average. Sub-Saharan profiles especially young, South Asian profiles especially young. Youth unemployment often sits in the mid-teens to high 20s, roughly 2 to 3 times adult rates. NEET ranges from the mid-teens into the low 30s, higher for young women in several cases. Headline inflation eased from 2022 peaks, but food and transport inflation stayed sticky or spiky, compressing real entry-level wages when adjustments lagged. Poverty remains high or stubborn to reduce in several countries. Pandemic setbacks have not fully reversed everywhere. Where wage growth trails CPI, real wages dip. and discontent rises. Madagascar, youth cohort well above global average. Labor, youth unemployment elevated, NEET high 20s or higher. Prices, headline volatile. Food costs burdensome relative to incomes. Poverty, among the world's highest headcounts. Rural vulnerability acute. Pressure point, job scarcity plus basic cost stress. Nepal, youth cohort, mid to high relative to global. Labor, youth unemployment elevated, NEET significant with gender gaps. Migration cushions but signals domestic demand shortfalls. Prices, food and transport inflation episodically high. Wage catch-up uneven. Poverty, reductions uneven. Vulnerability to shocks persists. Pressure point, cost of living and job quality. Peru, youth cohort mid to high. Labor, youth unemployment moderate to elevated. Informality prevalent for entrants. Prices, inflation spiked then cooled. Food and transport squeezes lingered. Poverty, rebounded post-pandemic and remains above pre-2020. Pressure point, cost plus service quality and trust frictions. Indonesia, youth cohort above global average. Labor, youth unemployment moderate, NEET mid-teens to low 20s. Prices, headline contained, but food and transport saw periodic spikes. Poverty, trending down but pockets remain. Pressure point, job quality and formality gap. Bangladesh, youth cohort above global average. Labor, youth unemployment are NEET elevated, especially for young women. Prices, inflation near double-digit at times. Food inflation persistently high. Poverty, significant headcount with slow improvement during high inflation period. Pressure point, costs outrunning pay, limited quality jobs. Philippines, youth cohort above global average. Labor, youth unemployment moderate to elevated, NEET high teens to low 20s. Prices, food and transport drove inflation episodes. Real wage gains uneven. Poverty, gradual decline with setbacks during price spikes. Pressure point, food prices and urban transport costs. Kenya, youth cohort above global average. Labor, youth unemployment, underemployment, moderate to elevated. NEET notable. Prices, inflation spiked, food and fuel salient. Tax and subsidy shifts amplified strain. Poverty, significant headcount, urban-rural gaps. Pressure point, cost of living plus service delivery. Morocco, youth cohort above global average for MENA. Labor, youth unemployment elevated, especially urban graduates. NEET high. Prices, inflation peaked, then eased, drought raised food pressures. Poverty, pockets persist, rural vulnerability. Pressure point, graduate jobs and food affordability. When essentials rise faster than entry-level wages, real income falls. Graduates queue into informal work. NEET rates swell, particularly for young women. Digital networks and cheap data lower coordination costs. Diffuse grievances can turn into synchronized action. Relief paths center on faster job creation and matching. Stabilizing food and transport costs. Transparent and targeted subsidies. Youth-focused labor reforms that expand apprenticeships. And reforms that reduce informality. Macro space is constrained. Higher debt service and subsidy bills limit budgets. That makes sequencing and credibility critical. In short, economics do not explain every protest. But where youth bulges meet high NEET, sticky essentials inflation, and thin ladders of opportunity, pressure builds fast. Sociology studies not just what happens on the streets, but why people move together when they do. It looks at expectations, networks, meanings, moments, how they align to turn private strain into public action. Relative deprivation, life course blockage. Across Madagascar to Morocco, young people measure promised pathways against stalled transitions into decent work, independent living, and dissonance becomes motive. Resource mobilization and horizontal networks. Student unions, worker collectives, neighborhood groups, faith or community associations. Nepal, Kenya, the Philippines, pool skills and spaces. Low-cost messaging knits Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Peru into fast lateral coordination. Framing and symbols. Shared slogans, campus chants, emojis, memes, pop motifs give Madagascar, Morocco's youth a common identity. Song color and simple demands help Peru, the Philippines claim moral legitimacy. Political opportunity structure. Election calendars, court rulings. Local bylaws. Security forces split. Security forces stand down. Security forces harden timing choices visible across Indonesia, Kenya, Nepal. Collective efficacy and risk diffusion. When thousands gather, live streams, marshals, legal aid hotlines in Peru, the Philippines and Bangladesh spread confidence and reduce perceived individual risk, until deterrence tactics raise costs and shift strategies. Digital repression and counter-adaptation. Bandwidth throttles, platform bans, content takedowns in parts of sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia and Southeast Asia. Youths pivot to VPNs, mirror accounts, offline meetups, and analog flyers to keep flows alive. Movement outcomes. Where groups in Morocco or Kenya sustain cohesion, articulate actionable demands, and engage allies, concessions emerge. Where fragmentation grows or repression escalates, momentum stalls or shifts to longer civic work. Taken together, these lenses explain why similar pressures yield different arcs. Expectations prime action networks assemble it, frames legitimize it, opportunities time it, efficacy sustains it, repression reshapes it, and organization converts it into policy or dissipates. Comparative movement research, digital activism studies, and human rights monitors read alongside UN, ILO, World Bank context, support these cautious patterns without claiming one-size-fits-all laws. Next, the appendix notes the data sources and limits that underpin these interpretations. Appendix, comparative panel. Countries: Madagascar, Nepal, Peru, Indonesia, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Kenya, Morocco. Demographics: youth shares are broadly above global averages across this panel. Sub-Saharan Africa's under 15 share exceeds 40% versus roughly 14% in Europe. UN. Poverty is severe in Madagascar, and substantial pockets persist in several peers. World Bank. Side-by-side metrics. Snapshot. Youth share, UN. Higher than global in Madagascar, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Indonesia, Kenya, Morocco, mid to high in Nepal and Peru. Youth unemployment, sought NEET, ILO. Elevated in Madagascar, Nepal, Morocco. Moderate to elevated in Peru, Indonesia, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Kenya. Interpretation. In most cases, youth joblessness is 2 to 3 times adult rates, inflation and poverty. Price pressures spiked in recent years in Peru, Bangladesh, and Kenya. More mixed but still volatile in Indonesia, Morocco, the Philippines, Nepal, Madagascar, national CPI, World Bank, IMF. Poverty rates remain high in Madagascar and significant in Bangladesh and Kenya, with reductions uneven elsewhere. World Bank, national stats. Methods and data quality. Counts are contested. Official tallies, organizer estimates, and observer reports often diverge. We triangulate press coverage, on-the-ground monitors, OHCHR, HRW, Amnesty, and national human rights institutions. Demographic and labor data from UN, ILO, World Bank, and national statistics. Time windows differ. Figures are not strictly comparable, but support clear directional patterns. Interpreting outcomes. Determinants repeatedly observed, security force stance, movement cohesion, and clarity of demands. Where security services split or stand down and movements stay organized with actionable agendas, change accelerates. Otherwise, concessions are partial or repression intensifies. Forward look. Youth politics will shape agendas around jobs, justice, and digital rights well beyond this protest wave. Like and subscribe to Smartobrains for more engaging deep dives into breaking news, politics, sociology, economics, social policy.